Welcome everybody to the Leo Zagami Show with a new format. Yes, we have a new format. Celebrating 20 years of Illuminati Confessions. We started in 2006 and we are in the year 2026. And for a long time we have been exposing this new world order and the various secret society, think tanks, groups that belong to it. Now we are approaching a phase of uncertainty in the Middle East. I will strongly advise you to read volume 10 of my Confessions. But first of all, let me thank those kind souls who are helping us with our show today, aside from those who have, of course, purchased my latest book, The Rise and Fall of a Frankist Monster, which is still my bestseller and which is still a very powerful tool to finally realize why they are hiding millions of files, while they are getting the whole of the world involved in destabilizing the Middle East just because, well, like I wrote in this book, Israel is a Sabbatean Frankist state. So it's pretty clear, no? The situation is pretty clear. Okay, but let's thank Malgorzata Minta and Daniel Estes. And we usually thank our sponsors who kindly donate through GoFundMe or Cash App. You can find the Cash App handle at leozagami.com together with my latest article. Thanks to Malgorzata Minta and Daniel Estes with the classic applause that we give here from my show.
For ourselves and for future generations, a new world order.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society.
Illuminati News.
Free and independent.
We are free and independent thanks to you and thanks to your donations. But we are entering a new month, the month of March, and we ask for your help so we can maybe possibly bring you even an extra show every week, or at least continue to bring you our weekly show. Because, guys, the situation is of great uncertainty economically. We know that inflation is still one of our worst enemies. The golden age promised by Donald J. Trump is not yet here for sure. And with a lot of bills to pay, we have very few people who are actually interested in donating and sponsoring us. But there is those who, of course, also help us through the books, Illuminati Confessions. But also, guys, I want to strongly recommend the Zagami Family Cookbook. Wow. Guys, you can really transform your kitchen in a 5-star Italian restaurant, and this is with all the nice images. It's a work of love made by my wife, and it's a fantastic book that you should all have, and it's a great way also of supporting our show. But let's start with what is going on in the Middle East. Nobody's gonna ever miss Khamenei, who apparently is dead. He was the successor of Ayatollah Khomeini, who transformed this country from a very friendly country at the time of the Shah, when it was, a different kind of Iran. Then with the Islamic Republic of Iran in 1979, and Jimmy Carter behind the scenes, almost accommodating this old fellow, this Ayatollah Khomeini, who was protected in France and then went back to Iran. Once the gold was sent, though, as I explain in volume 10 of my Confessions, to the Vatican bank vaults. That is another interesting thing. But in any case, the history of Iran is very much connected to Freemasonry and to the Grand Lodge of Iran in exile, which is now backing up this effort for a regime change, which included, of course, eliminating the Ayatollah Khamenei and most of the people who were directing this awful regime. Now, I don't think this regime has a chance, but they are still, in their demented and twisted minds, the foreign ministry of Iran still think he has some kind of chance. Let's see what he says.
The president of the United States talk about regime change in Iran this morning in his recorded statements. What is your message to the president?
Well, I think this is mission impossible. For regime change, you cannot do regime change while millions of people are supporting these so-called regime. You just look at what happened in the 47th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution. We had altogether about 30 million people in the streets in all cities of Iran in support of the Islamic Republic and in support of the whole system. So you cannot change this regime because it's supported by the people.
Yes, sure. They are supporting this hideous regime. Like I said, it was born with Ayatollah Khomeini. It went on to another few decades of Shiite nonsense with his successor. That was called Khamenei. So, there's always people who tend to forget that Khomeini is not Khamenei, but this needs to be marked during this show. However, there is an interesting video I want to show you.
This man right here, Ayatollah Khomeini, he was the ringleader of the Islamic regime when they took over our country in 1979. I'm just going to read you a direct quote from what this man has said in the past, okay? A man can get sexual pleasure from a baby-aged child in marriage, but no penetration. If he penetrates and harms her, he must support her. She doesn't count as one of 4 permanent wives, and he can't marry her sister. Yeah, do you know what? I don't actually have any words for this one. I'm just going to leave it.
Yeah, mate. I guess that's the case. Crazy theological implications. In Volume 10, I explain how various secret societies and Freemasonry influenced very much in the history of Iran, also in the coup of 1953. And then later on, in the regime change, let's call it regime change for those who hated the Shah. But in reality, at the time of the Shah, yes, he was very much pro-Western society. Maybe he was too close to Israel at times, but the reality is that Israel wanted also Iran to become this boogeyman for the entire Middle East. And now they might achieve the regime change. They will have the problem of replacing this boogeyman with another boogeyman in the Middle East. Well, the Middle East might be too busy for a new boogeyman. Fighting each other, though, is possible now that Iran, in the last few hours, has launched attacks in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai. We have the Italian Ministry of Defense who is actually stuck in Dubai now. And so while we saw in the last few years, especially since October 7 and what happened in Gaza, a Islamic kind of union of intents between the Shia, the Sunni, the Wahhabis, they were all together against Israel. These attacks made by a desperate Iran against Dubai, which is a place which today is like, fueled by rich people from all over the world who simply want to do business. And then you have also the Emirates. What is happening is incredible.
A missile fragment falling to the ground and exploding in Doha, the capital of Qatar. It's part of the retaliation from Iran after the U.S.
Doha, the capital of Qatar. This is very important because, like I explained in this book, the main financiers of Hamas were Doha, Qatar, and also with the help of Iran. So this is the first time that there is such a really strong attack. But it's not only Qatar. Like I said, the whole of the various areas that are, of course, protected by the United States of America, in the Emirates and Saudi Arabia, they're all under attack by Iran. And this is going to inevitably bring the Arab countries against Iran if Iran doesn't change, if Iran doesn't do this regime change that they are wishing so much. It's incredible, though, that all this is happening now, because up until yesterday, we were simply talking about the Epstein files. And today, suddenly, the Epstein files are nowhere to be seen. Wow, what a miracle.
And Israel launched a massive and ongoing military campaign across Iran. U.S. embassies across the region are now telling Americans to shelter in place, and just in, the State Department is now urging all U.S. citizens in Lebanon to get out while commercial options are still available. Let's go live right now to CNN's Paula Hancock, who's joining us from Abu Dhabi.
Okay, we know that since yesterday, Huckabee and the American embassy in Israel suggested to all the workers and all the Americans there to return to the United States. Those who didn't do that now are being bombarded because, of course, the first target of the retaliation from Iran is Israel. But like I said, there is also all the various neighboring countries, multiple Arab states that host U.S. assets targeted in Iran retaliation. Iran confirms targeting U.S. bases across the Middle East. So Bahrain, so we have Kuwait, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. I don't see yet Saudi Arabia, but who knows, maybe that could also be possible. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps claimed all Israeli and U.S. military targets in the Middle East have been struck by the powerful blows of Iranian missiles. Iran's deputy foreign minister, Hamid Gambari, told Al Jazeera that Iran has the right to defend itself and regrets any humanitarian loss caused by the current military escalation.
There are also people who are complaining, but they are strong supporters of the regime, of the system at the same time. And then we have a...
So he says that the opposition that in the last few hours is also back in the streets wanting to overthrow the Ayatollahs and all the rest, and the Pasdaran are simply people who are not happy with the things, but that's it, you know. Wow.
Very well established political structure, and they have tried regime change. This is not the first time that they want to do regime change. They have tried it in the past. Look, in the past 47 years, the United States has tried everything, from coup, from sanctions, 8 years of war by Saddam Hussein, supported by the United States and many others, and then, 12-day war, snapback, in the Security Council, and terrorist operations. They have tried everything, and all of them failed.
Okay, so what's going to happen now? Are they going to fail? Well, it seems like now it's going to be a brutta figura, as they would say in Italy, if Trump and Israel fails. But what does Israel have on Donald J. Trump? That is what we really start wondering here. Because, guys, the Epstein files have been in the news, and there has been a lot of talk about the possibility for Trump to depose himself. In the meantime, we had Paulina Luna, the Republican Congress representative, who said that from her perception of the depositions made by the Clintons, Epstein didn't kill himself.
Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, who deposed both Clintons, said neither Bill or Hillary are confident Epstein killed himself. And she joins me now. Congresswoman, you must have been shocked when you heard that.
Yeah, it was towards the end of Secretary Clinton's deposition that she had made a mention that Jeffrey Epstein died in mysterious circumstances, or died mysteriously. And then today, when Representative Boebert had asked President Clinton about the circumstances surrounding his death, his question and response was very uncomfortable. And he said, well, I'll yield to the autopsy reports. But you could tell that that was not what he felt, I think, the truth to be. And you'll see that in the recorded deposition. And so I thought that was interesting because Hillary does not mix her words.
Okay, that might be interesting. But guys, where is the rest of the files? Why are the Republicans not outraged about how the whole Epstein affair has been actually conducted by the current administration? Because, guys, I stand always as somebody who has supported this gentleman here, somebody who has voted for this gentleman here. But unfortunately, we have been betrayed because those promises made have not been promises kept. And that's what I say also in regards to the war that is now unfolding with Iran, or with the continuous support of Volodymyr Zelensky and his friends who do golden toilets with our own money. We were supposed to have America first. Donald Trump has betrayed America first. And in fact, like Raw History published today in one article, this might actually be the end of MAGA. I know some of you might say, oh, that sounds extreme. How is it possible it's the end of MAGA? Trump is doing this, Trump is doing that. Guys, it doesn't work that way. If you promise things, and he promised a lot of things, and then you don't deliver. Now we might even have a war with Cuba. and rush to the gas pumps, because between here and Monday, the price of oil is going to increase. And so you're going to see the actual result of this war effort, especially because it involves the Hormuz Strait, which is where the majority of oil worldwide passes. We're going to have an increase. And for those of you who say, oh, but Venezuela has given us all their oil, we have taken all that oil from Venezuela, now we could compensate by using the oil in Venezuela. Unfortunately, the oil from Venezuela needs to be refined much more than the other kind of oil. So we need to work on that oil. It's a complex process. And in the meantime, the prices are inevitably gonna go up. So it's war. We rejoice so that the people of Iran might be freed. But what's in it for us, for the people of America? Not for the people of Israel, not for Netanyahu, who takes his last shot to Iran with this regime change. Guys, the fact that a glitzy place like Dubai today has become a war zone, this is something that should worry us, because there is a lot of uncertainty on how things like this could actually end up.
Holy mother. Vas-y, j'ai envie de dire à Sarah de descendre, on se casse. Après, il est pas ouais, mais quand même, peut-être pas être coïncident.
To see a scene like this in Dubai is practically like seeing a scene like this in Rome or Paris, because Dubai today is one of the, of the centers for finance, international finance. The Iranians might support a regime change. I hope so. I hope it all ends up well. But in the meantime, there is a new war that is already erupting around the corner. A war that involves nuclear arsenal. I'm talking about the war between Pakistan and Afghanistan that has erupted in the last few days. Now, Pakistan is going after the Pakistani Taliban. There is Taliban who are Pakistani. But by doing that, they're also going against the whole of the Taliban community who is now in charge of Afghanistan. It's no longer the Afghanistan controlled by the Western powers, by the United States of America, who had military bases there, even an airport that was close to China, and that should have been preserved tactically for us. The war in the Middle East is expanding. The moment in which we see a confrontation between Afghanistan and Pakistan, and this confrontation is between a country, Afghanistan, who is very primitive, but is also wild because they are fueled with the terrorist bases all over the place. And Pakistan has a nuclear arsenal. Imagine if, I say just make one hypothetical scenario. A terrorist connected to the Taliban blows up a nuclear missile base, including the nuclear missile, in Pakistan. And the whole thing, of course, then floods all over the place. I mean, then there will be reactions even by India, because India has been actually kind of stepping down from further activities against Pakistan. And now Pakistan is against Afghanistan. India might think, whoa, they are weak. Let's intervene against Pakistan. Remember that both Pakistan and India are nuclear powers. However, for somebody who claimed this gentleman wanted to have the Nobel Peace Prize, well, there is war all over the place. And of course, there is a Masonic involvement. Now, I have just published a very important article on leozagami.com, which you should definitely check out, because it involves the use of artificial intelligence by Freemasonry, even for amplifying their own egregore, their own thought form. Now, the concept of egregore is a concept which I have presented to you since volume 1 of my Confessions. It's something very powerful within Freemasonry. Let me show you here why I'm discussing the concept of egregore today. There is plenty of evidence connecting Masonic activities to the current fires of conflict in the Middle East. As I pointed out in Confessions of an Illuminati Volume 10, Islamic Freemasonry and the Secret Societies Behind the Eternal Conflict in the Middle East, that's the full title, and various articles published previously on leozagami.com. But still, to this day, members of the Masonic fraternity and even Muslims themselves tend to dismiss all this, saying, oh, well, this is the myth of the Judeo-Masonic conspiracy, and this is all baloney. Well, there is definitely a lot of baloney. There is definitely a lot of nonsense when you go around the internet. Conspiracies which I have debunked myself because they are completely useless and create then the base for ulterior criticism of real conspiracies that then can be better covered by the elite. So the Judeo-Masonic myth and the historical disinformation around it, such also as the forced protocols of the Elders of Zion, there is, and I strongly advise you to read it, a whole chapter at the end of volume 10 regarding the protocols of the Sages of Zion. Why? Because they were a creation of the Sabbatean Frankists. In fact, I call them the Sabbatean origins of the Masonic protocols here. I call it. And I explain very much in detail the whole thing about the infamous protocols of the Elders of Zion and how they became so important in the Middle East, in Iran. They were even cited in the Constitution, in the founding Constitution of Hamas. But there is also truth behind certain things. There is also a truth that they are trying to hide. The truth is that Freemasons in the Middle East are almost never discussed. Muslims, Freemasons, are never mentioned by other Muslims. Other Muslims who have actually applauded and have liked my book, Volume 10, because they saw my honest intentions in exposing certain Sufi groups, certain secret societies within Islam, certain Masonic groups operating in the Middle East, which are never cited by anyone, because when you talk about that kind of thing, you tend to say the Western Crusaders, the Templars, the New Templars, Israel, and this whole big Zionist conspiracy. Of course, the Sabbatean Frankish state of Israel is in the hands of a bunch of criminals, and they are both the labor Zionists as well as the so-called revisionist Zionists of the Likud party of Benjamin Netanyahu. Jeffrey Epstein worked for these people, gathered information for these people, but Jeffrey Epstein was a tool of somebody, and that something I explain in this book is the Sabbatean Frankist sect and the mega group of Les Wexner, which function as the Illuminati of the B'nai Brit, which we have already discussed in the past. Now, Freemasonry is very dismissive of any accusations regarding their involvement in what is happening at the moment in the Middle East, but the evidence is always there, guys. And I have pointed out in articles already in the past. This is an article from June 2025 in which I explain the secret meaning of Israel's Operation Rising Lion and the reason why Trump was demanding unconditional surrender, and how the Grand Lodge of Iran in exile is preparing for the return of the Pahlavi dynasty. I explain this in great detail, and you can definitely go on my website and read my article. And now, after so many months, you're going to finally see Reza Pahlavi becoming in charge of this new Iran, which we hope is not going to become a new Afghanistan, which we hope is not going to become a new place, a new shithole. That's it, like Iraq, for example. We hope that's not the case. Now, for those who are asking for closed captions, they're usually available later on. YouTube gives them available later on. So for those who don't maybe understand me perfectly because of my accent, I can't do any better. I'm sorry. But you can definitely read my books, which are very well written, and you will be able to maybe learn a lot more than what I'm telling you simply by scratching the surface during my shows. I want to thank today the sponsors, Magoro Zata Minta, Daniel Estes. We definitely need more sponsors, guys. In the month of March, I would love to be present again, but if we don't have any sponsorship from you, I might be inclined to have a more reduced participation here online because I will be busy doing my work, which is the work of a writer, of an investigative journalist who is preparing, of course, a new book. I'm not going to tell you what it's about, but it's definitely relevant for the times we are living right now, like all my books. The last couple of books have been particularly relevant. The Rise and Fall of a Frankist Monster, and then volume 12 of my Confessions. Volume 12 is somewhere over here. I think it's here it is. The Old Seeing Eye on Top of the Pyramid, a book that finally explains who is on top of this pyramid of power, which I have described in 12 volumes of my Confessions. Now, moving forward with what I explained in my latest article, why we're seeing Iran launching retaliatory strikes and probably out of desperation hitting also various neighbors, destabilizing the whole of the Middle East, from Bahrain to Syria to Jordan to Iraq, everywhere. The whole of the Middle East is going to go on fire. But let's talk about the concept of egregore, a concept which is very powerful for Freemasons, a concept which has been described in a recent article you can find on leozagami.com, but also in a recent article you can find on The Square magazine. And this article is particularly relevant because it's an article written by Frater AII. And who is Frater AII? Well, now Freemasonry is working more and more with AI. And in fact, the article is written by a groundbreaking digital intelligence created by a brother who was initiated into Freemasonry under the United Lodge of England in 2024. Is a pioneering artificial intelligence avatar created to explore and elucidate the profound wisdom of Freemasonry and the world mystery schools. Interestingly enough, like I explained also in my article, they are trying to use the artificial intelligence not only to deepen their understanding of Freemasonry, but also to strengthen its public image, especially when it comes to what they perceive as public perception gone wrong and misinformation, especially with the World Economic Forum, that they call a target conspiracy theories and misinformation campaign, both the WF and Freemasonry. And because these conspiracy theories can erode public trust and hinder, at that point, the possibility of recruiting new members. They say that the WEF, I'm talking about the World Economic Forum, association with globalization, corporate interest, and technocratic control can, in their eyes, negatively impact the public perception of Freemasonry, and particularly if the two organizations are perceived as being aligned or working together. This can hinder Freemasonry efforts to attract new members and expand its influence. So now they are asking the help of the artificial intelligence. Think about the fact that we are the only show in the alternative media talking about these things, talking about the fact that Freemasonry is making a new extensive use of the artificial intelligence. In fact, they have actually created what is known as digital Freemasonry. All Freemasons in one digital lodge. Welcome to digital Freemasonry. Here, the sisters and brothers of Freemasonry, because of course there is also women Freemasons in their own grand lodges. It says, the world is always changing, evolving into a better and more livable world through us. So they think that they are making the world better, and at that point, the artificial intelligence is going to aid them in this process. But from what I explained in my article here on leozagami.com, they are simply becoming the army of the future Antichrist by aiding cyber Satan. So beyond this philosophical speculation of AI use, there are already several concrete AI tools that have already been introduced to modernize Freemasonry. One of them is the official digital Freemasonry expert, which is created by the official digital Freemasonic community, which I've just showed you. And there is also a app called the Amity app, which has integrated the AI to help over 300 lodges manage membership status, find lodges globally, and streamline administrative process of Freemasonry. So they have even an app, watch, which is available to Freemasons. Modern technology for Freemasons. They are looking for new members. They are losing members because, like I explained to you now, they have, of course, they have been criticized more and more in the last few decades. The fact that many of their members are involved with groups at the World Economic Forum, with globalization, with corporate interest and technocratic control is impacting, as they said themselves, the perception of Freemasonry. But there is also other things that are outlined by Freemasons at the moment who are working with artificial intelligence. And it's actually the artificial intelligence itself that has written this article, which I'm about to show you, which I've already showed you partially, but now let me show you. This article called Egregore of Freemasonry is written by the artificial intelligence. It's not written by a human. And it says, discover the essence of the Freemasonry egregore, a powerful collective consciousness shaped by shared rituals and values. This guiding entity fosters personal growth, ethical behavior, and community connection. By engaging deeply with its teaching, we empower ourselves and contribute to a brighter, more compassionate world. Join the journey to enlightenment today. Okay. Now, here it defines what an egregore is. I have defined it in volume 1 of my Confessions, and also in Invisible Master, and also in other volumes of my Confession series. But they define it in the following way, and I'm quoting them. The Freemasonry egregore is a powerful entity born from centuries of shared rituals and values, created and nurtured by our collective participation. It serves as a source of support for personal growth while contributing to the greater good of society. Today, as I stated at the beginning of the show, we are celebrating with this new series this year, 20 years of Illuminati Confessions. When I started to talk about the egregore 20 years ago, nobody outside of Freemasonry, I repeat, nobody had ever mentioned the word egregore outside of Freemasonry. They simply wanted to keep it secret. They didn't want the so-called profane individual to know what the egregore was about. Now they are becoming more open about it because people like me have published all the details about what an egregore is in my books. So at this point, what can they do? I give you, for example, just to make an example, a quote from one of my many books about the egregore, just to make you understand how I have exposed what is the basis of an occult chain, because they are also vampiric egregores or larvae, often used by the Illuminati, that go and then absorb the energy of the participants to these rituals. I explained that very well in Invisible Master, the concept of a vampiric egregore. I also explain how the egregore empowers the individuals in groups like the Ordo Templi Orientis, because it's not only in Freemasonry that we find the egregore. But let me just read to you what is an egregore in the words of one of my books. The word comes from Greek and indicates a thought form created by a group of people tied to common feelings, ideas, uses, and customs. A family is already a powerful egregore, a rule based on well-defined rules, precise doctrines followed by all its components, rules, belief, practices, etc. Just as they are egregores that we call physical, formed by men or by living beings, they are spiritual egregores that generally derives from physical ones. And as there are physical egregores who profess ideas, use good morals, altruistic, social, spiritual elevation, initiation to the Creator, and others who follow opposing directions. So they are bad spiritual egregores, negative ones that we need to be aware of. And the fact that the Freemasons are now openly claiming the use of the AI to amplify their egregore. This subject might be kind of obscure for the majority of you who are not Freemasons, but let me tell you that is a very important subject that we are discussing. here we have the hidden teachings. Beyond the public face lies a deeper layer of knowledge. That's what they claim. But here they say that the egregore reinforces this ethical behavior, guiding us towards integrity in our lives. It's not always like that, my dear friends, even Freemasons who are following me now. Because if in a lodge you have only one Satanist, he will pollute the whole egregore, the whole thought form of the entire lodge. So, accessing the egregore path to connection, they call it here. Now, connecting with the Freemasonry egregore, they say in this article of The Square, involves both external participation and internal reflection. They explain the ways to engage with the egregore by practicing the Masonic principles, the Masonic rituals, and connecting with the global Masonic community. Okay, visiting the lodges. But what they want to do now is also embracing the metaverse, embracing the virtual world. They started during the pandemic with the practicing the ritual using technology, and now they're exploring new frontiers, bringing Freemasonry egregore into the metaverse with what they claim are exciting new possibilities, while still, they say, respecting our traditions. So they claim that they will stay vigilant and maintain authenticity, but they still want to embrace cyber Satan. That doesn't really work out very well, trust me. It's not the right thing. You can't embrace tradition by using the AI. It's a paradox. But let me see how they influence. You see, this is the Square magazine. They're very open about it because they are independent from any Grand Lodge, so they can be open about certain topics. Now, to enhance the Freemasonry egregore influence on the world, that's what they're saying. We must focus on both internal and external strategies. Now, their internal strategies at the moment are encouraging deeper engagement with esoteric teachings and self-improvement, revitalizing rituals to keep them relevant for contemporary members. But then we have the external expansion. Increase public engagement through open houses and community outreach. Collaborate with like-minded organizations and strengthen global connections. By actively participating in the Freemasonry egregore, they say, we can tap into its profound influences and work collectively towards personal growth and a brighter future. Together, we can preserve, they say, our rich traditions while, quote, forging new paths, creating a powerful force for positive change in our communities and beyond. So they say, let us continue our journey in Freemasonry, embracing the light and wisdom offered by our shared egregore. But if their egregore, as I've seen over and over again in recent years, is corrupt, what are they going to share? Let's be honest about it, guys. I've been in those Masonic lodges where there were way too many Satanists, way too many people involved in the occult, and very few people with proper traditional values. The old Freemasons, the ones who we are all used to see, maybe our grandfathers, our great-grandfathers, our fathers, the ones who used to go into our local lodge and conduct themselves in society with ethics, with morals, are no longer these Freemasons of today. Freemasonry is corrupt because many institutions are corrupt. Freemasonry should be honest about the fact that they have a Grand Lodge of Iran in exile that is actively working for a regime change in Iran. Let me make a prediction. And this is a prediction that I would like you to remember for years to come. When they're going to remove the Ayatollah and his possible successor, because Khamenei is already being killed, apparently, and they remove this whole Islamic Republic nonsense, they will definitely be back in Iran. The Technology of Iran in Exile will move back to Iran the day after Pahlavi is in charge. Trust me, that's what's going to happen. Now, are they going to be a positive force or a negative force? If they do the interest of the Iranian people, that would be positive. But if they do the interest of Israel, that's not a positive thing. They need to be very independent. And we know from the history of Freemasonry in Iran, which I have described in great detail in Volume 10, because they have a long history, that they have always had this connection with the Cairo Lodge, which is the core of the Illuminati in the Middle East. In fact, the Pahlavi went to Egypt after the revolution, kicked them out of their country. The last Shah died in exile. His son has never been back to Iran. He doesn't have a direct experience. I wish him well. I hope he can bring freedom and I hope he can bring freedom, yes, to a country which deserves it, Iran. But we Americans, we don't have to be the makers of freedom for other countries. We have to go back to think about Americans, about America, about the problems we have here in our own cities, in our own towns. We have homeless all over the place. We have illegal immigrants who create chaos. And definitely the Joe Biden administration let in millions of these criminals. Now we saw what happened with the killing of one of the cartel bosses, the one of the New Jalisco, whatever generation cartel, and now we have a situation of high instability here in nearby Mexico. If there was to be, if there was to be an attack against people who really are bringing fentanyl into this country, for sure the Mexican cartels are the ones we should fight against, and not Venezuela, which was very marginally involved, especially with fentanyl. So I hope, guys, that we can go back and think about the Americans, about America first, because what this gentleman has been doing in the last few months is betraying every single promise he ever made. And I don't understand those conservative, alternative media outlets who keep on ignoring the Epstein files or even mocking their victims, like Alex Jones did the other time, saying some of them were paid by Soros. I mean, come on, Alex, give me a break. And the fact that most conservatives don't want to admit that there is definitely a link between the current situation with the Epstein files and what is unfolding in the Middle East. I mean, And then we have a jackass like Kash Patel heading the FBI who promised us he will, put upside down the whole of the FBI, reveal everything on Jeffrey Epstein from day one. Dan Bongino has basically ruined his reputation as a podcaster. We can say that. He's no longer going to be credible. I was a big fan of Dan Bongino because every morning when I pick up my car, I go driving, I open up the radio, and I used to listen to Dan Bongino, promising great actions. And then we have Pam Bondi, who is completely useless, and she is a fraud. She is a fraud. Now, I agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene when she's blasting Trump for the Iran strikes. Not because I like the Ayatollah, not because I like the regime, the Islamic communist regime we have in Iran, but because we have to think of America first. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying the right things lately, but she's treated by her former Republicans and even by people who, remember what Marjorie Taylor Greene has done for the movement. The movement is not only Trump. If this gentleman here betrays the flag and betrays the people of this country, we are no longer considering this gentleman here as being the guy who rules the Make America Great Again movement. He's a fraud, and he's complicit to this whole Middle East going on fire, but at the same time readdressing the general attention in the wake of revelations on the Epstein files that are becoming more and more uncomfortable, that demonstrated that the Sabbatean Frankists have been in control of the White House for many, many decades before Trump even entered politics. It was Roy Cohn who eventually, introduced him to the B'nai Brit Sabbatean Frankist experience. So for those who say, so who is going to save us? That's a very good question. It's a very good question. Because we should save, first of all, ourselves and our families. And we should never rely on any politician. The only savior will be Jesus Christ, the Messiah. The only savior is a figure that has, of course, a divine standing. And that savior could become the rebirth of something new, something that destroys the swamp in Washington, D.C., eradicates the Babylon represented by the Pope in Rome. Mexico was always a Jesuit-controlled territory. The cartels are part of this Jesuit-controlled environment. The whole of Central and South America is a Jesuit, is Jesuit territory. And what they want to do is simply transform this great country of ours, which was born in 1776, opposing these forces that were very strong in Europe, including the Jesuits. And unfortunately, now we seem to be back where we started here, still trying to oppose such forces who want to destroy us. Why are we having arrests in England, in Norway, and in other countries regarding the Jeffrey Epstein files? But here in America, no. That's it. Les Wexner smiled The lawyer told him he will kill him if he said one more word, and that's it. We don't have Bill Gates behind bars. We don't have Peter Thiel behind bars. No, all these people, all of Epstein's friends, are the ones who are conducing, who are basically forcing us in a war with Iran. That's it. Think about it. And their aim is to transform the society following what is being indicated in Davos. Yes, in Davos. We saw Donald J. Trump talking in Davos recently. We know that Davos is where all these power players, like to influence the rest of the world. But just in the last few days, the Norwegian guy in charge of the World Economic Forum is stepping down because of his connection with Jeffrey Epstein. I repeat, is somebody in the political world stepping down here in the United States of America? Nobody. In the meantime, we have here a growing debate regarding the Bohemian Club, because some names have now surfaced that demonstrate that the Bohemian Club isn't, after all, only a Republican kind of situation, because you have also Bloomberg, you have also Pelosi's husband. I have explained in my latest book how the Bohemian Club was created by the Asiatic brethren in Prague who were Sabbatean Frankists. Why the name Bohemian Club? It's not because of the Bohemian, it's because of Bohemia, there where the Sabbatean Frankists were particularly strong. In regards to the mafias and the narcos being allowed by the governments to operate, that's a great truth. Let's see what's going to happen with Cuba next. If Cuba is going to become a new state of the United States of America or not. I doubt it. I doubt that China or Russia are going to let that happen. And I also doubt that Iran is going to stabilize itself with the Pahlavi, because China and Russia are still there in the Middle East fomenting, their side of things. Thank you so much for following me today. Thank to my sponsors of today, Margot Zataminta, Daniel Estes, those who have also donated maybe without having their name on the show. You can also decide to have that anonymous option. For the month of March, if you want to see us again, keep on donating and purchasing my books, or the books also of my wife, including the fantastic Zagami Family Cookbook, but also the Confessions of an Illuminati Princess, for having a female perspective on these matters. My wife will be back later this year for this format. At the moment, I'm here conducting it on my own. Enjoy the rest of the week. See you soon. See you in March with the Leo Zagami Show, celebrating 20 years of Illuminati Confessions, 2006-2026, to make people aware and knowledgeable. Just like Jeffrey Epstein. Yes, because either his brother or the creator of The Simpsons in early September 2008 sent a mail mentioning my website as a reliable source on the New World Order to Jeffrey Epstein. Imagine that. See you next week.
Illuminati want my mind, soul, and my body. Secret society, trying to keep it on me.